hope you say the same, because this is the final presentation of today, and this will be one of the best, I hope. And you said Stockholm is the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful, but yesterday I arrived back to California. I was here the first time 1968 as a deck boy on a cargo ship, so it's 46 years ago. I started getting old, yeah. Anyway, thank you for inviting me here. I will talk about our project Mona Lisa, and you see, here we are, and why are we here? Before I went here, I went to a course in Sweden to make good presentations, because if I'm going to America and I will have this audience, I need to learn how to make a good presentation. So the lady, the teacher, maybe it's going around, she told me you have to tell them who you are. So who is speaking now? He said, my name is Ulf Svedberg, I'm captain. I worked as a pilot in Stockholm for 18 years, as chief pilot and a real pilot. That's me, a couple of years ago. I'm boarding a ship. I work with Swedish Maritime Administration. The last 6 years I have been focusing on research and development. This is what I'm doing when I'm not working with the Swedish Maritime Administration. And this is my legacy, my 2 grandchildren. And this is the real boss, the one on 4 legs, a mini schnauzer. And why are we here? Why I'm here, that's I will present the Mona Lisa project. And why you are here, that I hope that you will listen to what I'm going to tell you about the Mona Lisa project. So the Mona Lisa project, it's a European financed, little bit of budget. Half of our expenses is paid by the European Commission. We have a lot of partners. All of those partners you see here, they are paying to be partner. Half of their budget is paid by the Commission. It's a lot of them. It's almost 40 partners, and they are very interested in our project. When we started the Mona Lisa first time, it's 4 years ago, it was only 2 partners from the industrial sector. Now it's almost 20. We have Carnival, it's an American company, I think, Jeppesen, Transas, Martech. There's a lot of big companies here. And there they are again in names. It's from the public sector, 11, industrial sector, 19, and academies, 9 universities from 10 countries in Europe. And we have some also in the technical reference group. This is the big ones in the industry, and they are on board the project because they understand that what we are going to do is very, very important, and they would like to be inside, not outside. That's why they're here. I will explain later on what we're going to do. So, also this lady, she told me that when you start to make a presentation, you have to build up a problem first. So, and you have to say yes to be positive, because it's better to say yes than no. So, are there any problems at sea? Yes. Is there space for improvements at sea? Yeah, a little bit positive. All right. What kind of problems do we have? We have a lot of traffic, and it's increasing. We have a lot of bureaucracy for the captains, and it's increasing. And we have a lot of accidents, but they are actually not increasing. But anyway, we think that within the Mona Lisa project, we have some nice tools that can help and assist the shoreside, the VTSs, and the ships, the captains. We can have a look on the accidents. This is from the European Maritime Safety Agency. Accidents at sea the last years, it's around 700 accidents every year in Europe. Then we can compare with the air industry, as we heard before today. How is it going over there? Our colleagues up in the air, how do they do? They have about 30 accidents a year. So then you can compare. It's maybe we have something to learn. It's very big differences between the air business and the maritime business, but maybe we can take something from them and learn and adopt it. So that's what we are going to do in the Mona Lisa 2 project. I just show you an example. One of the latest collisions in Sweden is a small cargo ship going the wrong way. He's coming down here from Germany, Kiel Canal, going up here to Sweden. This is Denmark. He's around here at the moment. This is after the accident. We took it out from the AIS. Now he's coming a little bit closer. This is the port where he's going. He's supposed to turn left here in there. Somewhere around here, he fell asleep. So he continued. He should have been here somewhere. He's continuing, and there she goes. No more water. And here she stands outside a small fishing port. I will show you later on how we could have done it with the Mona Lisa system. Then we have this bureaucracy for the captains. They have some problems. 80% of the work for a captain today, according to a captain on the Maersk line, is paperwork and reporting into the ports when they are coming in. Sometimes they have to report 24 hours ahead, sometimes they have to report 48 hours ahead, or 72 hours. Sometimes they have to make a telephone call, or by mail, or by fax. Telex I don't think anybody uses anymore. A regular container ship coming to Europe, visiting 6 ports, have to present 80 documents. And this is one of the biggest problems for the captains. They have to spend too much time reporting and making paperwork than do what they're supposed to do, navigate. So, and we think so. We think that we have something in the Mona Lisa project that could help us with this. And it's about information. It's all about information. In the aviation business, they are working with something they call SWIM, System-Wide Information Management. It was invented here in America by FAA, I think it's called Federal Aviation Agency, 1997 something. And the European, they adopted this back in 2005. They started to work with this. And now I hope this works. I haven't tested it yet. Next slide is very interesting. What do you see here? It's 1,000 dumb, stupid fishes. They don't know what they're doing, but they have situational awareness. They are sharing information. I don't know how they do. They don't know how they do. But in some way or another, they can share information and they don't collide to each other. And I think that we can make something similar. Because it's all about flow control. That's what they're doing, the fishes. And the birds. You have seen the birds also, 1,000 of them. They're flying around and they don't collide. We have to change our mindset from need to know to need to share. That's what it's all about. And we call it in our project sea traffic management. And this is one of the big problems we have at sea. That's why we have so much reporting for the captains. It's a point-to-point contact of information. It's not the flow, it's not a controlled flow, it's a point-to-point contact. That's how it looks like today. And then we compare with the air industry, and they have the same problem. That's why they started with, we heard today in the lunch, this CESAR program, Single European Sky Air Traffic Management Research. And in the United States, you're working with something similar called Next Generation. Anybody heard about Next Gen? Michael, yeah, and one more. So they have the same problem. Now, what are we doing in Mona Lisa 2? Now I will show you a small, short film, 3-4 minutes long, and that will explain exactly what we are going to do. I hope it works.
Modern maritime transport is a complex, demanding business where meeting customer requirements and deadlines are merely parts of a much bigger picture. But perhaps the biggest problem that exists here is that of communication. Developed in 2010, Mona Lisa was designed as a monitoring tool that would simplify shipping coordination in the Baltic region. During its development, however, a considerable number of new challenges and possibilities were brought to light. Unlike the airline industry with its global air traffic management network, the shipping industry has to rely on manually updated information. The problem lies in the fact that the flow of information is limited to a point-to-point exchange, instead of existing as a network that allows instant system-wide access to all relevant shipping data. This entails time-consuming work keeping up to date with traffic, port, cargo, weather, and safety information. What this means in the long run is a much bigger margin for potentially disastrous errors. Mona Lisa is a system that will enable open, real-time sharing and updating of information, solving many problems throughout the entire transport chain and providing an unprecedented overview of maritime activity. Each voyage will be given its own unique voyage number. This number works as a carrier of all relevant information concerning the planned voyage. In order to function, the system relies on all stakeholders adding new data as soon as it's made known, which in turn is instantly obtainable by all parties. This way, the amount of available information will grow as the voyage continues, from port of origin to destination, from cargo carried to up-to-the-minute data about every crew member. It will take the present mindset from need to know to need to share. Mona Lisa will be of great benefit for ports where goods are received or delivered. Booking times for berthing will be smoothly coordinated, and each port will be utilized with maximum efficiency. This in turn will simplify the freight process inland, leading to a more stable transport infrastructure. Navigation will also become far less problematic. Route optimization will ensure traffic safety, while boosting the economy through saved time and fuel, which in turn will radically reduce the industry's environmental footprint. Information exchange on this scale will also give emergency services such as police and search and rescue a strategic situational edge. With data that can be remotely accessed en route and on-site from wireless devices such as smartphones and tablets that will help coordinate operations and save lives. Coastal security and customs will also benefit from Mona Lisa's information network. By analysing traffic data, authorities can track and pinpoint suspicious vessel activity, reducing crime immeasurably. If we are to succeed in our goals to reduce emissions by moving freight traffic to seafaring vessels, we will need Mona Lisa's help. Our planet's welfare depends on solutions like Mona Lisa to lead us into a cleaner, safer future.
That was big words. Okay, I admit that. Anyway, this was a glimpse of what we are doing in the Mona Lisa 2 project. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of job to make this work. A lot of things we have already done in the Mona Lisa 1 project about the route exchange. That's already working. So I will talk a little bit about route exchange. And this looks familiar. Yeah. Route construction. We have a ship over there, and he's going somewhere over there. And to make this route happen, he needs some information. He has his needs, the captains, and there are some constraints. There are land over there, and there are shallow waters, and there are weather restrictions, whatever. What we like to add here to this is what we call the Sea Traffic Coordination Center. It's not a control center. And we have access to a little bit more information than maybe the captain have about the availability of pilot, the availability of berths in the port, and the latest information about the environmental no-go areas. So what we started with in the Mona Lisa 1 is to develop a route exchange format. We can now transmit routes from the ship into the shore side to this what we call STCC center. And then we can add value to this route, the captain, the information that he hasn't have, and send it back to him again. And we can send the route back and forth from the ship to shore many times, updating the route with the latest information. But the most important thing is that it's the captain that decides. It's not controlled by the shore center. I heard that on the lunch, the questions coming up, and it's always the captains that decides what's going on. Then this is a tool, and it could be used in any way. So if some country that will start to use this on some area will start to use this, maybe they will decide that it's the shore center that have to decide. But the intention from the Mona Lisa project is that it's always the captains that decides how to go with their ship. The problems now we knew about the problems, but what we discovered is that the different companies that's producing these equipments, Kongsberg, Transas, Furuno, Saab, they have different formats. The company that helped us in the Mona Lisa 1 was the Saab, and they developed the program. It's working perfectly, but they can only communicate within each other. So that's why so many companies now join the Mona Lisa 2, and we are now taking or producing a common format and architecture for this route exchange. And this format is almost ready, and I know Michael is working with that. So we are finally there now to have, for the first time, an international common standard for this route exchange format. And that's very important, because then any ship can come to any port, nevertheless, what kind of equipment they have, they can exchange routes. And the dynamic proactive route planning, if we now can start to use this, if we can exchange routes and voyage plans, which we can, then we can also start to optimize it. What we discovered when we invented this route exchange, it's like opening up a Pandora's box. There are so many possibilities that we can achieve with this. We can also monitor and provide assistance from shore side. It's not about shore-based pilotage, because it does not exist. You can only be a pilot on board a ship. You can never, never, ever do piloting from shore. You can make assistance, maybe. This will be also a very good decision support for captain, for anti-collision. You will have much more effective surveillance from those authorities. You will reduce the costs and the emissions. This is how it would have looked like if we have the Mona Lisa system. This is Sea Traffic Coordination Center in Denmark. He's going from Germany. He's going up here to Sweden. This is the Swedish. He changed over now, and we follow the route continuously. The ship is traveling. Somewhere around here, the captain is falling asleep, but he's still monitored continuously, and he goes straight away. And you have a warning alarm immediately ashore and on board. We can contact the ship by this DSC, and we can transmit over a new route to the captain. He can confirm it, and he can be back on track again, and no accident. This is the idea of the route exchange and the automatic monitoring system, and it's working. We have tested it in the polar region with our icebreakers. We have tested it in the Baltic Sea. So we know it's working. And then, let's see. Yeah, we made a movie about this. It's a 7-minute long, and it's not professional actors. It's not an Oscar winner or nominee either. It's our own personal, but it will show you how it's working. Let's see if it starts.
Ensuring and enhancing safety at sea is a high priority, given the high costs in terms of loss of life, environmental and economic impact, and general public perception associated with maritime accidents. New risks have arisen due to the increasing size of the actual ships and their areas of operation. New and improved technologies for maritime traffic management will be the key to securing safer operations and lower emissions. Within the next 30 years, transportation is calculated to almost double, a big part of it ending up at sea, which will increase the risk of accidents significantly. At the same time, ocean wind farms, oil rigs, wave power stations, ecological fishing areas, pipes and other constructions will take up more and more space. The passive and reactive systems of today cannot cope with tomorrow's traffic. We need new, improved ways of navigating and communicating in order to handle this growing traffic problem. After some years of working with voyage planning, research and innovation, certificate control and route planning and optimization, the Mona Lisa system can now present an operational hardware and software solution, which has been tested on ships in the Baltic Sea and on icebreakers in the Arctic region. The system can send routes between ships and between ship and shore, allowing routes to be optimized and monitored from a Sea Traffic Coordination Center ashore. Today, sea traffic surveillance relies on a reactive methodology, trying to identify anomalies, instead of being proactive like the Mona Lisa system.
How are we doing?
Lots of traffic east of Ven.
Okay. Let's take the route west of Ven instead. Send over our new route to STCC and prepare for the adjustment.
How's it going?
Oh, it's fine. Mona wants to take the route west of Ven instead of the planned east route.
Does that pose a problem?
No, seems like a good idea. It's less traffic there, so I'll propose that we agree with the change.
And there comes the confirmation from the coordination center. Great. This will save us some time.
The Sea Traffic Coordination Center will put the captain at the heart of the process, allowing new services that will increase safety, reduce costs, and improve the environment. Here, we can create tailor-made routes, catering to each ship's individual needs and the captain's requirements, such as assistance in ice navigation or in other complicated areas.
Morning.
Morning.
Everything okay?
Well, we're closing in on the ice limit, sir, but we should get an updated route soon.
It looks like quite hard ice conditions ahead.
Yes, it does. Yes, route received.
This looks good. Just follow the route.
Yes, sir.
The route exchange model will give all actors the same situational information, meaning the STCC and other ships will always know how a ship is following its route. A signal will automatically be sent should a ship deviate from the agreed voyage plan.
Mona,
Mona, STCC calling.
STCC, this is MS Mona replying.
warning. According to our equipment, you are now heading for shallow waters.
Please check your position.
STCC, this is MS Mona. Thank you for assistance. That was a close one.
The STCC can detect immediately who is not part of the Mona Lisa project and the dynamic and proactive route planning. This helps monitor traffic, reducing the risk of accidents and helping the involved actors to make quick, correct decisions.
A ship just left Tornio. There's no information regarding the route, and the CPA seems to be close.
Keep an eye on her, and I will check with STCC. STCC.
Lisa calling.
Yes, Elisa, we can see that vessel too. We have no information about her intended route, but we will keep track on her.
STCCs will also be able to provide a broad spectrum of services, such as complex route optimization, weather routing, real-time maritime safety information updates, environmental sensitive zones, and other no-go areas. In the case of unforeseen events like an accident or sudden military drill, Mona Lisa and the STCC headquarters can lend support by rerouting traffic to everyone's benefit.
Okay, Roger. We will take care of it. The Navy's having a big drill. They want to call off Drogden for about 3 hours.
Okay, well, that will give us something to do. A lot of traffic heading that way right now.
Yes, we will have to start rerouting.
What's happening?
Seems like the Navy's having a big exercise. All the traffic through Drogden is being rerouted. We will pass through Finnrännan instead. Won't be a too big detour, I think. Maybe we won't get stuck like last time, surrounded by the Navy for half the night.
Okay, that was the last one.
Perfect. Give the green light to the Navy.
With the aid of modern technology and new processes, we can go from reactive observers to proactive operators that can coordinate and monitor maritime events. This will prevent accidents and environmental disasters. Instead of waiting for anomalies and incidents, we can now plan in advance. With optimized traffic flow and information exchange concerning each other's routes and whereabouts, we can now prevent accidents. We need to change the way we manage freight transportation by sea in order to meet tomorrow's shipping demands. The Mona Lisa concept has everything required to provide feasible solutions for delivering increased safety, efficiency, and environmental preservation. And the best part? It's ready to be implemented today.
So, that was the film. This is already working, this equipment and the technology and the software and the hardware. And there is more about the economic and about the legal, but we don't have time for it, so I say just thank you and hope you enjoyed it.
Well, thank you very much, Ulf. Could I ask the previous speakers to come up to the desk, please? And could you kill the projector light? Thanks. Right, we got a little bit of time for discussion here, but before we start the discussion, I'd just like to bring your attention to this title of this conference. Many of you will be aware that the IALA and the Danish Maritime Authority have done a series of e-navigation underway conferences. I think there are 4 of them, annual conferences in Denmark. And where's Sam? Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the ideas behind branding the e-navigation underway USA is IALA have a very nice style of conferences where they debate professional issues in the conference, and then at the end of the conference they come up with observations and recommendations that are proposed to the entire assembly and agreed upon. It's a tricky way of going about it, but it's very valuable to be able to say that the 100+ delegates came up with these recommendations and conclusions. And those recommendations can go to IALA, they can go to the IMO, they can go to the industry. And that is the intention, Sam, if I'm correct, of this conference. It's not your average commercial conference. So as we partake in this discussion, keep that in mind, that we will be looking to come up with conclusions and recommendations to put forward from this body to help move the development of e-navigation along. Right, that said, let's have a little discussion. First of all, raise your hand if you're a cadet. Marvelous. Now, cadet, what do you think of that last presentation? Who'd like to say? Young lady here, nodding her head. Oh, wait for the microphone. And if you could please, all of you, when you get the microphone, if you could just introduce yourself, please.
Hello, I'm Ariel Raboli. I'm a junior this year. I'm a DEC student. I thought it was a fabulous presentation. It really does seem like a good idea. It seems like the Mona Lisa project is kind of ahead of the game, already ready to go. But I think we're on our way there, so I really appreciated that.
And from the smile on your face, I can see that you're a little bit excited about it. That's good. We need people to be excited about the maritime industry. Now, those of you who are crusty, who would like to comment on the Mona Lisa project? Everybody's happy with it. Oh, we got one back there. Steve? Fred, all the way back.
Okay, sorry. Hi, my name's Steve Price. I'm in regular correspondence with members of the Nautical Institute through the social networking site LinkedIn, and I've been able to pass 1 or 2 comments from this room back to the membership via LinkedIn. And a new word has been coined during the last session. It's called neo-Luddism. And the question really seems to rotate around where command discretion truly lies. When we talk about routing measures and control of ships, we also have to bear in mind the principles that are embodied in the collision regulations and in ISM. So I think that there's a further debate to have about what is permissible in advisory terms between the shore and the sea. That's my comment.
Thank you, Steve. Ulf, do you want to make any comment about this? I know you've done a lot of work on legal issues.
As I said before in the presentation, this is a tool that we have invented or made possible, but then how it should be used, it's not up to us to decide or even have an opinion about. That's the regulators. But this is a new tool that is possible to use. And this always when new tools and new inventions are coming, like the radar, you will have problems. You have the radar-assisted collisions between those passenger ships, Stockholm and Andrea Doria, 1956, and they died some people. So when you have new tools, you have new possibilities, but you have also new dangers, and you have to regulate them. You have to make standard operational procedures to deal with those problems that will arise. And now with this new tool that we have, we cannot foresee all kinds of problems that's coming up, but we will learn and we have to regulate it. But that's not up to us, it's up to the government and the authorities to do. We have made a tool.
I'd also like to mention that one of the deliverables that came out of Mona Lisa 1 is a very nice document on legal issues, and if anybody is interested in the legal issues surrounding that, it's a very nice document that's available free on the website.
Yeah, it's on the website, and shortly about the legal issues and about the UNCLOS, we can never change, you can never change UNCLOS, it's absolutely impossible, that's what we have been told. If this will be implemented, it will be by voluntary basis. It's the only way. You can never force on, because you have regulations also for the crew members. There are so many things that we cannot change, but on voluntary basis, this will happen, not by regulating.
Thank you. We can see Ulf's outlined the genesis of how this project of Mona Lisa was developed with particular reference to the European waters. Would anybody like to speculate on how such a thing would work in the United States? Scott?
Thank you. Speaking sort of as a representative of the group between Cadet and Krusty, I think the major strength in the Mona Lisa project is, with all due respect, not necessarily the video, because the video does tend to suggest that it's a much more controlling tool than it is an information exchange tool. The benefit that I see there is that it takes a lot of the guesswork out of communication. One of the most complicated things for a mariner to do today in a VTS environment is to communicate their intentions to the VTS in such a way that the VTS is able to then watch the progress of the vessel and compare its progress to their stated intentions. We probably agree that when voice radio came to be for the 72 call regs, that it introduced confusion. In 1972, with the new voice radio regulations, all of a sudden the passing arrangements of one whistle or two whistles were able to be confused by human voice-to-voice communication. So I see the Mona Lisa as being an interesting way to communicate complex intentions very easily, and for the VTS or the shore-based authority to communicate complex recommendations efficiently. That's one point, but if I might, I wanted to address a second point for Captain Grubbs, who has mentioned training several times. Do we have any other training folks in the room? And of course, some students that are in the learning phase. There's something to say about training other than just to give it. The training industry has a process called the task analysis that is overlooked repeatedly in maritime development. And the task analysis involves a 5-step process where you ask yourself, through analyzing a task, what do you do? You watch people do the task, and then you say, how will you do it differently with this new technology? What we tend to do is we tend to ask for input from the mariner without actually analyzing what they do with the old technology, and then allowing them to design a way to perform the same tasks with the new technology. And then you have to try it out. There has to be the trial period. And then you have to ask yourself, how did it go, and then fix it. Without each step in that process, which is a rather long process, you won't have success. And then the final stage in that is the training. The training can't come until you've determined how the product or the technology is going to be used in the context of this operation. So I just implore upon folks to think about that. When we talk about training, before we do the training, we have to analyze the process and design a new way to do certain tasks without just introducing the technology necessarily. Thank you. More observations than questions, unless you have some input, perhaps, Captain Grubbs. Does that sound like what you were thinking?
Yeah. There's a mic there on the table.
We invest a lot of money in training pilots. And things that mean so much money to the industry, like cruise ships fitting underneath high wires, and the option would be knocking the high wires down and electrocuting half the people on a ship, and developing virtual. I mean, the word virtual is a bad word right now. We, the pilots, not we, the Corps of Engineers, they developed a virtual polygon to go underneath the high wires with that big Carnival cruise ship, based on our needs. So we spend a lot of money. This is the problem. Even if, and I haven't heard anybody talk about training enough, I heard y'all, that's great. Even if they had a training course, IMO, and IELA said, they'd step in and say, well, this is the best thing to do. I know what IELA does. I was part of it for a long time. I love my time there with Mike, and we developed some really good things. But theirs is cost prohibitive. You know, you got to sell you 15 Cadillacs if you got them to pay for somebody to go to a VTS course. It's not going to happen in the U.S. Now, part of this ENAV initiative is going to be all these inland mariners who need to be trained and cannot afford to be trained. The companies won't be able, so they can have their own little school, small schools, or maybe they'll give them a disc and say, instead of looking at Barney tonight, look at this, and this is the how-to of the new ENAV. So it's a complicated issue. We're on a higher end professionally and economically, and we're going to do what's necessary to understand and train, and we can pay for it. But there's thousands of them out there that will never use any of this. They just won't. If they're not going to use it. You'll have a few people, a few techies on some of the boats. Look, I saw on the Coast Guard website. It's been in operation for 10 years. I'll be damned. Maybe we can use it now. But there'll be no training because they can't afford that type of. So somewhere in between what's affordable and what's doable needs to be looked at by the training institutes. It's really more their problem than anything else. But I'm afraid you're going to see a lot of ENAV-assisted collisions. And when you break it down, it's going to be, he wasn't trained properly. If some poor guy is going to buy the form because this room didn't do their job right, and I'm using that as a metaphor of the higher end of who's developing this, didn't do their job. It was either somebody who wanted to sell some equipment, that list of companies we had with Mona Lisa, or the people developing that vision because they were real smart and said, well, we could do this. But all the users out there, and there's an exception. The AIS was so simple, and I have to give the Swedes a lot of compliments because we'll steal the idea from the Swedes, but really I enjoyed my time in Stockholm and the archipelagos with Benny Pedersen and going on ships in Sweden when they were first developing that, and we brought it over to the U.S. and we claimed it. There was such a simple concept that anybody at almost any level of the educational spectrum could understand it, and they could use it at various levels. So with that, as the e-navigation vision goes forward, if you forget about training, you're making a serious mistake.
Thank you. Yes, commenter?
Hello, yes, this is Geir Fagerhus. I have maybe some good news for you and an invitation to the US. In both Axis and Mona Lisa, there's quite a lot of artifacts being open sourced. So a lot of what we actually produce will either get into becoming an international standard, which is by the nature of it is going to be free of charge to use, and other artifacts will actually be provided as open source artifacts that you can download, use in your products, use to play with, and even if you want so, contribute to the improvement of it. This is a novel approach. We haven't sorted out everything around the hosting of it, how this is going to be maintained, but we know for sure that to get global adoption of e-navigation and sea traffic management, something like this is needed. We are pretty convinced about that. So if you want to start playing with some of the things that is currently being developed in Axis and Mona Lisa, it is out there and available on the internet.
If I could just respond to that. I'm a pretty smart guy. My presentation didn't go quite as well as I haven't done it in a while, but I'm a pretty smart guy. And I have an iPhone like everybody else has, or some type of phone. And when this thing goes haywire, I get my 14-year-old grandson and said, fix this damn thing. Open architecture doesn't even mean anything. There's just a term, open architecture. That's what I'm saying. You're going to have to get down to another level. You shouldn't say get down. You have to reach other levels of people who are really good at what they do. They just haven't gotten those buzzwords and all that scientific jargon down to where they can actually use this stuff properly. But I do appreciate what you're talking about. I understand.
Okay, well, there's a challenge for us. The
yes.
Gentleman here.
Yeah. Thank you for the accesses and then Mona Lisa.
Excuse me, sir, could you identify yourself?
Yes. I'm Young from Korea Maritime Universities. I have some questions. Almost the testbed project suggests the exchanging route planning, route informations each other. But then in reality, sometimes marina don't go following the route planning, especially the strait and then entering ports. Sometimes in that exchanging route planning exchanges makes confusions. How do you think about this case?
Right. I think the question is that within the test beds and the route exchange, there can be problems and there can be confusion. And how is that handled? Is that correct? Ulf, do you want to deal with that one?
Yeah, if there is some confusions in the route exchange, do you mean technically or?
When the
Okay, maybe it's not the technical problem. You mean if operational, when the captain, he makes up his route first, it's always the captain, he starts to make his route, and he transfers it over by AIS or by satellite or any means, and it pops up on the screen on the VTS or what we call STCC. And that's technically it's working. Then it can be a confusion, you mean, when the STCC, they will change the route in some way, but they can add information, all different, the changes, all the changes that will be done is written down in a protocol, and it will be transferred over to the captain again so he can see why it has been changed. So there should be no confusion. Maybe they forget about to write down why they have changed it, but that's the human failure. But there are processes that will take care of these issues.
And I think this is the very nature of a test bed. And I know that Mona Lisa uses an extensive network of simulation across Europe and even across the world to try to simulate multi-ship traffic situations to test the ability.
Yeah, and you were from Korea? Yeah, and Sweden and Korea and Denmark, we have signed a memorandum of understanding to start tests in Korea and in Denmark and in Sweden. And also we're now about to sign with Australia to make tests, so on different locations. And we will find it, why we have these test beds is to detect and find those errors and to fix them.
Right. Gentleman here?
Yeah, hello. I'm David from the New Zealand Maritime School. It's about this Mona Lisa. Having been a recent serving master, I can't think of any reason when I would have deviated the course that we were the route that we'd planned, because some nice exchange between a vessel traffic information system. We were on very tight schedules. We were chasing minimum draft on bar ports, and your video with this sort of very friendly exchange because the Navy were running an exercise and let's take the route a little bit wider. I can't see that ever being agreed to in a commercial sense, and also wondering whether there's some commercial information that's been exchanged that might be quite tight. Yeah, I just sort of don't trust Mona Lisa.
I think that's a fair enough comment, and perhaps one that's...
I can't see in the real world ships masters being so friendly to deviate from their course or share route information as your video is suggesting.
No, it was just a video and it was just an example. As I said before, this is a new tool that we have invented, and how it will be used we cannot say. Like you said before about the AIS, it was invented by Benny Pettersson, a colleague to me in Sweden. We started to work with this in the beginning of the 90s. I was personally involved in the first tests about the AIS. And when he invented this, he could not foresee what have happened to this invention, because the idea from the beginning was just to exchange information between the ships out there. Who am I meeting? What's his course and his speed and his destination? That was the first idea. And you know now how many different solutions or ideas have come up with the AIS. Benny had never thought about it and never dreamt about it. And I think it will be the same with the Mona Lisa concept. It's a new tool that is coming, and how it will be used and by whom, we don't know yet. So I cannot answer those questions. And I have heard from so many, they don't see any reason why they should use this Mona Lisa concept. There is no captain in the world who would need to have this information. It's unnecessarily. And that's always coming in the beginning when you have new information or equipment, like the radar. I don't think any captain asked for a radar in the beginning of 1940s before they invented the radar. But when they have it, they can start to use it and they see the benefits of it. But today we don't know, and maybe we will not use the Mona Lisa concept. Maybe we can find out in a couple of years that it's not necessary. So it was a good idea, but it flopped. But I still believe that we can use it if we use it properly. That's the whole thing. And that's why we're going to start with those test beds and the different places to see the needs. For example, in the Great Barrier Reef, we have a connection with the AMSA to start to test what kinds of needs do you have in the Great Barrier Reef. This area is the same big as the Baltic Sea. You have different needs there than we have in the Baltic Sea or up in the Alaska or here in San Francisco. There's different needs, different problems. So we have to develop the standard operational procedure, especially for different areas. There is no standardized concept. It's a tool. Now we have to develop the tool. So that's the idea. I hope.
And I think it's fair to say that this is still in the R&D stage, and with any R&D, you push the envelope so that you know where to come back to. Not all R&D come to fruition. Helen?
Hi, Helen Brohl, CMTS, Department of Transportation. I have a fairly non-technical question for Captain Grubbs. Regarding the use of the PPU, and you're using Army Corps of Engineers soundings data, and I assume, like other pilot organizations, you're kind of standardizing your common waypoints between each other and common use of the Crescent River. But you're in a highly sedimentation area. There seems to be yearly dredging down there. Are you actually updating your Army Corps soundings yearly? If not, how are you keeping up with, because you're in a very dynamic, well, I need to tell you, very dynamic area in terms of changing waterway, much more than maybe some other areas that are more static. How are you keeping up with that amongst your pilot organization?
No, that's a good question. Thanks, Helen. No, we do it daily. Daily. We get in like High River, as the river rises, you get a lot more silt dumps that shallows the river in the lower part. So we get daily, sometimes every 2 days, survey from the Corps of Engineers. They'll put it on a site available to anybody. Our provider, Raven, will access that, put it on their site, and that pilot, he can do it while on board the ship, if before he gets down that area. Most pilots, they'll do it when they get a ship at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. They'll go on, they'll log on to this the survey site and download it. So that's what it's done with the maximizing the use of the waterway, taking that extra draft. If he gets you can imagine somebody waking you up at 1 o'clock in the morning and say, well, you have a ship that's really nasty, rainy, foggy. Oh, by the way, you have a 900 or 1,000 foot ship drawn 48 feet. And the channel's a 45-foot channel. It used to be panic, but now you go right to your Raven, the site, look at what the depth is, that's within hours, what that depth of water is down there, and then look at that. We also have a ports program that will give you the real-time water depth, and so it's it pays its weight in gold. Are they doing what now?
Do you happen to know if the Army Corps provides that to Raven and everybody else in digital
Yeah, well, they have to provide it to everybody, but I mean, realistically, we're the only people that's putting 48-foot of draft, 47-foot of draft out there. Towboats have maximum 12-foot. They don't need that level, but it's available to anybody can log into it and get that information. Thanks, Helen.
So Michael Bergman-Jefferson, I just have a comment and a question. First to the route exchange, I think your point is well taken. Being part of Mona Lisa, I'm realizing that how the hell should anybody agree to a change of the route when he has a certain charter agreement which forces him to do certain things. But it's more like what happens right now already is route exchange happens between ships and the operators, the owners and operators of the ship, so they know where their fleets are and what they are doing. What Mona Lisa gives us the capability for harmonizing route exchange between different systems. So you're not bound to exchange Transas to Transas, SAM to SAM, and so on and so forth, but you can do that. That is a positive thing. And then you can go to the next step and say, okay, perhaps it's of interest for optimizing your assets, like the Malacca Straits, what you have to help reduce wait times, help reduce other things. We need to build it in a way that it earns its way to the bridges. It's seen as a benefit and not as you have to do that. If it is seen as a benefit, then it's successful. Well, that's one piece. The question I have actually for the panelists, when I take a look to all these presentations we have and the work we do with e-navigation, all is good and fine. The question is that really taken in consideration? And I'm trying to be a little bit provocative and trying to steer discussion. Do we actually take into account the cultural differences of crews on board of ships which are not Western type of people with Western type of thinking? I'm very happy that Korea is starting to get much more involved with that and that we have this collaboration with the others. But isn't a lot of those things are just steered up to Europe and North America rather than internationally, what we need to have in international sea trade with crews from the Philippines, crews from all kind of areas?
That's a great question. Let me just say, before I take a stab at addressing that, I'm going to comment on Mona Lisa. I don't know why, because it seems like a controversial issue. But I'll say that the issue of confusion exists today without Mona Lisa. I think the question maybe is not, will it introduce confusion, but maybe the question is, can it reduce confusion, perhaps? And with the issue of routing, point well taken, you know, those routing decisions and communications are happening 24/7, 365 in the inland waters with the vessel traffic service. I think you would agree, where the ship calls in and explains their intended route. Another ship calls in and explains their intended route, and the VTS acknowledges that route. Now, we don't use this terminology like let's agree, all agree, but that's what's happening in reality. And perhaps if a ship says we're going to intend to use the western traffic lane, the VTS has information that maybe there's a large concentration of fishing vessels there. They might share that information, and the master, of course, makes the decision on where they want to go. So I just point out that those issues are out there. When I heard the discussion, I think about that in terms of how the VTSs work and we manage our waterways now. This issue of cultural differences, I think, is really challenging because it's come up with some of the serious casualty cases that I spoke about. This issue of bridge resource management and cultural differences. And we actually, the Coast Guard put out a worldwide safety alert last year, which addressed bridge resource management in pilotage waters and how this is a huge challenge in pilotage waters because, in part, because of potentially cultural differences, and the pilot comes on board and there's an expectation that the pilot has all the answers and is going to take control of the ship, and we have a breakdown in BRM because you potentially have a single point of failure. How does this relate to electronic navigation? This is just a thought that I put out there. You know, nowadays, most piloting associations are coming on board with their PPUs and a tremendous amount of information and local knowledge, which you expect them to have. But could they potentially have access to so much more information to make their navigational decisions that it exacerbates this problem of taking the master and the rest of the bridge navigation crew out of the loop? And it makes it even more of a challenge to have a team collaborative effort on the bridge of a ship. That's one issue that I think has come up and may be a challenge if this technology you know, only reaches a limited user segment when we know it's it's an international business. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment.
I think that's a wonderful issue, but we're going to get into ship handling now and navigation in inland waters. And the idea about that you bring in more information that they have available to them for really good, like the cruise ship captains and crews, maybe the high end. they're amazed. How can we get this? Can we steal yours? Give us, we want it. And they have the best equipment that you can buy in the world. And I said, let's just go to Raven and buy it. If you do whatever you want. They really do appreciate that extra level of local information. The bridge clear, real-time ports. Who is that? That's NOAA. Real-time water depth. That's you don't have that. That's NOAA. One-day-old surveys. Who is that? The Corps of Engineers. That's your people. That's good stuff. Now, most crews, and I'm just going to lay it out there, by the time they get to any one of these ports in the middle of the night, nasty weather, they don't know where the hell they're at to begin with. They know they're in the Mississippi River. They have a mate on watch. The captain's he's been awake for hours coming. He's sound asleep in a chair somewhere. And that pilot is the Bridge Resource Management. And if there's a single point of failure, I can promise you, for the most part, depending on what happens, you got a nut for a pilot, who knows? It's not going to be that pilot. It's going to be somebody that the engine broke down, the rudder malfunctioned, the radar went out, steering gear, all these things happen. That's all part of the maritime world. But to bring a level of sophistication on a ship that somebody from a Moluccan cannot, he's a third mate. I don't even know how you got that license. I really don't. I'm not worried about it. I'll let the blue suits worry about that. My job is to get that ship from point A to point B safely. And if I need that equipment, and you're not going to get my PPU away from me, that's what we're going to use. So does it exacerbate it? No. They just the people who know, the regular, well-educated mariners love it.
You threw out a provocative comment, so don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely embracing the technology, and the more information we can bring to the bridge, the better. I'm simply saying, and I think you reinforced the point that I made, that what we've heard from the local pilots here, that we have varying levels of engagement on the masters and the bridge crews coming in for all the reasons that you just articulated. And there's no better risk mitigation measure from the Coast Guard's perspective than having a trained pilot on board. It's the most important partnership that we have in the ports, and I think you can ask the San Francisco bar pilots that are here, and they'll talk about how important that partnership is. But I'm not going to back down on the BRM issue. At the end of the day, pilots are human beings, and they make mistakes too. And it's in nobody's interest to have a single point of failure on the bridge. So if the bridge crew is not engaged in the transit, but the pilot is, that's great that we have the pilot on board, but that's not how the system's supposed to work. And I'm simply suggesting that the more information we can get to the bridge, great, and we need to think about how to get that to long-term to the masters and crews that have a navigational responsibility as well. That's the point I was trying to make.
Okay, thank you.
That's a really good point. But that, again, the reality is we have some high-end crews out there who do exactly what you're talking about, and then we got, even the container ships, we have that. And then you've got the people out there, the multilingual, multinational crews that don't even understand one another. And with the Coast Guard going to port state control years ago, it's really improved it, and it'll continue to improve it. But I got your point, and I think it's a good one.
Okay, just before we wrap up here, I'd like to ask one of you cadets in the back. We've heard from Dr. Williams with the Axis project of how authorities in the North Sea feel that relying on GPS is a weakness. How do you feel about the over-relying or relying on GPS, and whether you need another electronic system or whether you're comfortable enough falling back on traditional visual systems?
Hi, my name is Amelia Sween. I'm a deck cadet. This is my sophomore year. I've grown up in the information age, so I've never had to use a road map. I've always used my cell phone as a GPS for navigation on the roads here. So it seems only natural to me that we would use the same system at sea. I do, of course, understand the idea that over-reliance on GPS can fail, and there can be potential problems coming from depending on a system that can fail. But it seems to me that if we emphasize redundancy in the GPS system, it's one of the most useful tools, but also learning the traditional navigational skills is equally as important as a cadet.
So just to reiterate on that, it's fine to use the GPS, but if you're on your ship and it fails, what would you do? I mean, what system would you prefer if the GPS failed for whatever reason?
Depends on if we're inside of land or not. Visual navigation's always dependable, and if not, radar. And if you're not inside of land, celestial, I suppose.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much. Okay, one final comment, and then we'll wrap up here. Ushant.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yashwant Chabra from Anglo-Eastern Ship Management. As of now, we have about 450 ships. In the last 8 years I've been with the company, I have not heard of any GPS failure yet. And there are at least 20% of our fleet without sextants because the owners won't give one, simply because it's not a legal requirement. So I would go with that. I'm maybe from the BC age, but GPS is GPS. I mean, we have to have some statistics, how many GPS failures have taken place, unless the authorities in USA switch off the signals. So that's just a comment. 20% of our fleet is without sextant, so if the GPS fails at sea, well, it will fail at sea. We'll have to ask for a distress signal or something to tell them how to get to the place. Nothing has happened yet.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, time is limited. These have been some good discussions, and I hope we can follow them up throughout the evening's occasions. And tomorrow, Sam, house notes? Okay. Before we go into the house notes, could I just ask everybody to thank the panel? Over to you, Sam.
All right, thank you, David. I knew that this session was going to be one of the most controversial, and it didn't disappoint. So thank you for very interesting presentations, all panel. Just a few reminders of what's going on the rest of today. For those of you that would like to go back to the hotel, freshen up a little bit for before dinner, the bus will be outside the RISA auditorium in about 10 minutes to take you back to the hotel and then back to campus for cocktail reception and dinner. For those of you that would like to stay, and I highly encourage this, we have our Transys and Kongsberg sponsors, open house in the Sim Center and the Tech Center if you'd like to see the latest in simulation technologies and some e-navigation head-up display research that we're doing. We have that available in the simulation center in the upper level. Unfortunately, we're not able to have anybody down at the ship today. The ship is loading up, getting ready for cruise in a couple of weeks, and it was going to be too much of an impact for their operation, so we had to call that one off. But the Sim Center, Tech Center are open. Bus outside in 10 minutes for those going back to the hotel. So see you either over there or back up at the dining center at 1800. Thank you very much.